And the US will need stronger alliances because of that. Either they go away, which I doubt, or strengthen their alliances with the other countries in the area that feel also threatened by the stronger presence of China. There's always this dictum in physics, no? For every action, there's an equal counteraction. And that's exactly what's happening right now. Every time US will take action, China will take action. China takes action, US will take action. If India takes action, China will take action. So it's escalating. No? There's already an arms race. The defense budget of India has increased. The defense budget of China has increased. The defense budget of Japan has increased. Also Australia and also the US. So now we are seeing an escalation. Now, when will the Philippines have an increased defense budget? I don't know.
Okay, next will be Colonel Pangatuan.
Good morning, sir. I'm Colonel Pangatuan from the Philippine Army. The Duterte administration plans to reduce our poverty incidence, which is I think 26% by 2016, and at the end of the president's term by 2022, we have an ambitious forecast of half of the poverty incidence that will be reduced to 13%, I think 11%. And among the drivers for this one is really the sustainment of our growth, economic growth. And among the promises of the economy is the foreign direct investment, especially what we have get from China after the President Duterte sidelined the arbitral tribunal, and he after his visit from China, there are big investments that is being pumped into our economy. My question, sir, is with the US-China competition and all other countries are looking up at the rise of China, how will the Philippines temper our economic policies or economic engagement with China amidst these challenges in the West Philippine Sea? Because at the end of the day, we are looking for every Filipino to have some sort of development for India. That's what I solicit your thoughts on that.
Yeah, thank you. You know, that's a very good point. In fact, I've always been saying it's good to have this economic engagement with China. I remember we had the Chinese lady ambassador as our guest in our Rotary Club of Manila. This is about 4 years ago. He said, join us. We have a, look at this $10 trillion trade. Be part of it so that we can all grow by having this economic engagement. And that's good. That we have fallen behind as far as foreign direct investments are concerned. We are behind Vietnam. Vietnam's FDIs, if you look at the history, are much higher than our FDI. That's why now they have a vibrant export sector there. I mentioned that already. They're among the top 30 exporting countries in the world with an export volume 3 times our export. And they're able to do that with FDIs, not loans, but with a very strong export program. Something that we can also do. But yung 24, malaki may tutulong, 24 billion, malaki may tutulong. There is some issue there though, because when Secretary Pernia appeared before the Makati Business Forum sometime in February, he revealed that the interest rate of the loans from China was about 2 to 3% compared to about 10% lower when it comes to loans from Japan of about 0.2 up to maybe about 2%. So that became quite a big factor. Some people are asking, yeah, we have loans, but the cost is much higher than the available loans coming from Japan. By the way, Japan is also competing as far as loans are concerned. The 8.5 kilometer bridge that I mentioned in Vietnam was funded by Japan. The other, US is not so aggressive here, but there's the World Bank. The ADB just had a meeting, and the ADB said that they should be more aggressive. So we are seeing competition in terms of military hardware and in terms of financial power, because China has been granting loans all over, including in the Pacific Ocean. So, as I said, we have to maximize it. Now, on defense, when I was a congressman, I always said the reason we have the armed forces is to protect our economic interests, not to have military power per se, but to protect our economic assets. And definitely the EEC is part of our economic assets. Imagine what we can do with the 700,000 square kilometers that China is grabbing. I showed you already what an EEC has. So if we lose that, because we say let's give priority to the economy, if we lose that, we lose a big chunk of our future economic power. So these are the things that the strategies we'll have to consider. Maybe you can consider while you are brainstorming all these challenges that we are facing. That's why you're very fortunate you're taking this MNSA course. It gives you a strategic viewpoint of the problems that we are facing. Instead of looking at it from the Army point of view, the Air Force point of view, you add the economic point of view. You look at yourselves as part of the broad program of strengthening us economically. Because at the end of the day, it's the economy. The reason why we have fallen behind militarily is because of the economy. South Korea is way, way ahead of us, but they were behind us in 1966. You know, in 1966, when I left for the Naval Academy, South Korea's per capita GDP was lower than our per capita GDP. Indonesia's per capita GDP was much lower. China's per capita GDP was much lower than our GDP, but now it has changed because of the economy. But as I said, the AFP should be looked at as the protector of the economy. Every peso invested in the armed forces must be explained by way of justifying how it will protect and promote the Philippine economy. Thank you.
In the interest of time, maybe we could only order one last
One question, please. Yes.
So from here, Colonel Golez is recognized.
Sir, I'm currently from I pose some advocate perspective, sir. Sir, what gifts can we gain from loudly and overtly contesting China's militarization of the paracels if we could do so in a silent manner, if we are to document our protest? That's my first question, sir. And my second question is, as you have said, sir, the MDT coverage does not cover the shows and traps in this practice, considering that the basis of the coverage is the Treaty of Paris. What assurance can we have, assuming there are skirmishes, considering the neutrality of US on the issue despite its own hopes, which I surmise is an activity to support its own interests? I'm a bit worried about the snowballing concept of other countries in as much as China is too important economically to contest, in as much as I would say that it's exemplified by the ASEAN silence on this SCS issue. Well, we would, I'm just trying to convey that pledging of support by other countries is one thing, but physically supporting them is another thing. So that's my point, sir.
Thank you, thank you. Well, my point there is that we must express our sentiment, because I looked at the pattern. The pattern is very obvious that the South China Sea is being militarized by China. It's true that the bombers are there in the paracels, still far from the Philippine shores, but I can see that the next step will be the South China Sea already. If there will be no uproar, international uproar, we are the ones most affected. That's why I feel it's incumbent upon us to make our voice heard. It's true that the government right now is claiming that they have protested in a way, but they've remained silent without publicizing this in order not to ruffle the feathers of China. Maybe it's a good strategy because there are other items to discuss on the table. It is not just the security, but the economy also. But I also think of how we are looked at by the world. If we are quiet about this, we are the ones most affected. We are the ones most threatened, but we remain quiet. There's also the consideration of the public sentiment. If you look at the last survey, about 80% of the Filipino people say that we must assert our victory in the arbitral tribunal. So that is the sentiment of the people. So my concern is that the people might think that the government is not doing something about it. So that might create a misconception that might affect the image also of the national leadership in a wrong way. Because what the people do not know will influence their thinking in a certain way. If they think, because they don't know that nothing is being done by the government, they might think negatively of the government. So somehow, this must be made transparent. Now, on the next, on your next question, will the others would help?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, we don't know that. In fact, even they don't know. But they're all looking at the situation. China, I'm sure, is looking at that. China is studying what would the US do if we declare an air defense identification zone. What would the US do if we grab Scarborough Shoal and also build on Scarborough Shoal? What would President Duterte do? I'm sure they're assessing that. They're gaming that. And in the case of the US, they're also preparing because they already said that Scarborough Shoal is a red line. Not because they love the Philippines, but because that will affect their security. Because the moment Scarborough Shoal is developed, just like Fiery Cross and Mississippi, that will be a huge base. You know, Scarborough Shoal is about 150 square kilometers in the lagoon inside. That is as big as Quezon City. Imagine if you have a harbor as big as Quezon City that may end up hostile to us and hostile to the US and hostile to Japan. All of them, I'm sure, are war-gaming this already, anticipating what the other party will do in case they do something. So that is not within our control. Even President Trump probably doesn't know what he would do. Even the PACOM commander doesn't know right now what they would do. But they have options. They have a number of options on what they would do. In fact, right now, I'm thinking, what would be their next freedom of navigation operations now that there are anti-ship cruise missiles there that would put them immediately within the missiles killing zone? Because before, they could approach as close as 12 nautical miles. But now those cruise missiles have a range of 290 nautical miles. So that changes the threat situation. On the other hand, in the case of China, would they fire? If they fire, what would be the consequences? Would if a big 7-footer Hulk is right next to you and steps on your toe, would you kick him on the shin? Because if you kick him on the shin, two things might happen. He will go away or hit you. So you're talking of consequences. That everybody is wargaming, I'm sure, wargaming right now. Thank you. So I'd like to thank you again for this opportunity. to speak before you. It's my honor to be